So when we were planning out the forum, I spoke to the team about, we can't talk about currency is culture without having a real conversation about what happens within the organizations and the key people that are tasked with speaking, you know, hypothetically speaking on our behalf within those organizations. And I wanted to invite some amazing folks that personally know that are fighting for us within these organizations. And so I'll start there by, allowing each of you to just introduce yourselves so they can understand the context of, who they looking at. How about that?
Okay. My name is Amber Cabral. I am a inclusion strategist. I run my own company called Cabral Co. I mostly work with retailers on their diversity and inclusion and equity strategies. So essentially the plans that help people put ERGs in place, or coaching leaders, or designing training programs, or having those tough conversations that many of you wish you could have at your workplace. I am doing that kind of on your behalf as a consultant, working with companies day to day.
I'm Michelle Marshall. I'm head of diversity, equity, and inclusion for Puma North America. Puma's first diversity leader that they've had at the company. I've been in this work and around this work for about 15 years. I'm not going to go into the story how my therapist just let me know, helped me identify the fact that I started this journey in elementary, and how it made me become hyper aware, because I started noticing microaggressions in 4th grade before I knew what it was. And that kind of led me down the path to being hyper aware, and led me to, by the time I got to college on the PWI campus, I was the president of the African American Student Association, bugging the president, asking him where's the Black History Month money, asking him where's the resources for the Black students on campus. And continued to take that energy into corporate. I was with a financial company that had to start this journey early by force, not choice. I won't put them out there like that, because this isn't the moment for that. But back in 2009, I was the first diversity council chair, one of the first diversity council chair for that company, and just continued to build up on my career, where I ended up in the role where I was leading diversity strategy and community relations for the field for the company, for the Southeast. And then it led to me running a women's program in the nonprofit, where I was really working with women leaders on one end, while also supporting women that needed a hand up, not a handout, on the other end. And it led to this journey of me joining Puma.
Nice.
Good afternoon. Todd Corley, Senior Vice President of Inclusion, Community, Sustainability, and Corporate Giving here at Carhartt. I've been on this journey as a DEI leader for a long time. Along the journey, I've had other roles. So I, once upon a time, was head of diversity for Abercrombie & Fitch. I spent time writing about that narrative. That became a book. It became a movie on Netflix, The Rise and Fall of A&F. My journey around this work, that's a whole nother panel today. But I've been in this work in a long time, and I've enjoyed it. It has taught me who I can be better at. I've learned a lot from younger generations to keep pushing me to be more authentic for them, being in the room where things happen. And I'm looking forward to today's conversation and dialogue. So I won't belabor the intro. Certainly connect with you on LinkedIn if I can help you in any way.
Wow. So when I invited these amazing folks onto the panel, I reassured them that I wouldn't allow them to say anything that would get them fired. Okay. So I actually have notes so I can keep myself on track. So I sometimes don't always pay attention to what I'm supposed to say. I just say whatever I'm feeling at the time. So I'm gonna try to stay on course here. But one of the things that we did talk about is, I want people to understand we know your struggle. We know the difficulties that exist within working in corporations when you're the only one or you're a few of, right? I'm sure we could probably fill up all day tomorrow with, hey, questions around complaints and questions around issues and concerns. I didn't want this panel to be that. I wanted this panel to really be focused on a place of how do we help you understand your value, okay? How do we also help you understand the idea of self-development? And then the last one is the empowerment part. The empowerment part is critical because I know in 2020, I've received a lot of phone calls from folks because I wasn't employed in the industry anymore. I was doing my own thing, so I could say whatever I wanted to say. And so people would always reach out to me and ask, like, hey, what should we do, whatever. I was like, okay, I said, first of all, do you realize half of this is your fault? And I'm talking to black folks. I'm like, do you realize half of this is your fault? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, why are you waiting for the company to save you? What stopped you from starting your job and a week in, someone else who looks like you started that job and you took them under your wing and said, hey, all right, I've been here a week, this is what happened. But the folks that's been there 10 years, 15 years, 5 years, and if you didn't reach out to someone who just started, that's your fault. If you didn't establish a mentorship program at your organization to help the advancement of us within those organizations, that's your fault. You don't need the company to do that for you. That costs $0. You don't need company money to do that. And so for me, it was about first, how do we look at ourselves first? What can we do to do something different that makes a difference for us to have a different life within organizations? We always wait and try to go to the office, and we always come with issues and concerns and everything else. And this job is not easy. I think I read it was something like the average life expectancy of this role is like less than 3 years.
All right.
That's correct.
Did you hear that one? That's shorter than an NFL career.
Yeah.
Like less than 3 years, and they're supposed to fight for you in 3 years, right? Can each of you just give them one thing that is probably the most misunderstood part of your roles, working with organizations or even within the organization? Just one of the misunderstood things about that role.
I can definitely tell you that. The thing I see the most, that I think is the most misunderstood in every organization is that diversity isn't a department's responsibility. It is everybody's responsibility, every single person. So it's very similar to like how an organization says, this is our values. We have this specific value. Everyone must support this value. You should role model said behavior to demonstrate said value. That is exactly how inclusion and equity has to work in an organization as well. It can't be one person that comes in and says, hey, I'm equity. Right. And so now all of a sudden it works. And so I think that there's been a disconnect in a lot of organizations behind the idea of, okay, we have this person, they're going to lead us there, and also that you have to follow. Right. And that following includes shifting your behavior and holding your teams accountable and having brave conversations so that it's something that the organization sees as their responsibility instead of just a department.
Just to piggyback off of that, you have to understand this person that's coming in oftentimes doesn't have the adequate resources. They don't have the adequate head count, and oftentimes because organizations don't truly understand the elements of the work, they don't have a change management strategy in place. So you're coming in trying to embed D&I across the entire organization, having to drive your own change management strategy, having to create your own communication strategy, and oftentimes that's an uphill battle because if leaders haven't been alerted as to what it is your role is and why they should be collaborating and partnering with you, then it's oftentimes a fight because they're looking at you like, why are you over here? You're in HR. You have nothing to do with my job. So oftentimes we're having to, like Amber talked about, we're having to have a lot of crucial conversations, having to get a lot of buy-in, having to really work across the board. And we're one of the unique roles that work across the entire organization. We sit at a bird's eye view and get to see a lot of things throughout the organization. And our role is ultimately to be corporate chess players and put strategies in place that's going to be able to embed processes and procedures throughout the organization so we can move forward and move the needle.
I think the only thing I would add is the role requires you to be a negotiator, and you have to think about who you're negotiating with. So for me, when I came back inside to do this work, the thing that was, not for discussion was how it was going to be reporting. So I report to our president, but I have this role where I'm looking at the DEI piece, how it intersects with community investment and philanthropy work and sustainability. So having this work be tied to something is a big part of what you want to challenge us to do, so that we can make sure that we do for you what we can do. And that only usually comes when you have a lot of things on your plate to navigate the conversation. Because if you're singular work only, and you're not, advising around the marketing strategy or other things, then you're seen often as a department that's kind of just there. And that's not what you want. So you always want to make sure that you have that person, great word about the chess player, that chess player for you, because he or she's going to move the needle for you in more ways than you think. But you have to make sure that they have to have those resources available to them.
Very cool. Thank you. So how many of you in the audience have heard the phrase, "there's strength in numbers"? Yep. How many of you believe that you can get more done together than individually? So why don't we do that in corporate America? So if we believe it, if we've heard that before, and we believe that that's possible, why don't we connect as people within the organization? Why don't we share ideas, share visions to unify and go to the organization with one unified voice instead of 15, 16, 50 different individual opinions about what we want, right? And so what I found is the organization gets confused. If they have 15, 20, 30 people coming to them saying, "this is what we want," who's we then, right? So we end up diluting our voice by not unifying our voice. And so keep that in mind as you have your own visions and ideas. And I know most of these organizations have, I'm not sure, BERG, what is it?
ERGs.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I've been out of corporate America for a couple of years. So they all have some version of these initials, right? And quite honestly, when I was in corporate, I never belonged to any of them because I was about getting stuff done. And those organizations weren't getting stuff done. It was celebratory moments. I don't want to celebrate in the shortest month of the year. I want to get stuff done. I want to take people under my wing and give them all the game that was not given to me when I got in, right? So you have to own this when you go back into your organization. You have to own your responsibility of unify. You have to own that. Otherwise, you're going to keep waiting for something that's never going to come to fruition, ever. So my question to you, each of you, what one bit of advice could you give the audience to help them better control their destiny within the organization?
I mean, I'll start, and it's a little bit what you said earlier. You got to be honest with yourself, right? So this work, I think any one of us would tell you we would go to toe-to-toe for you, and if you were in our organization. But that also requires you to be honest about what you've done and what you're not doing. Because as we defend and try to protect and navigate and move roadblocks, what often gets me annoyed is when I'm like, oh, they're late every day? on Fridays or just no, every day.
Right.
So you have to take responsibility in how you're showing up. Now that doesn't mean apologize and not be you. It just means show up, be present, have voice, be involved in things. And I think if you do that part, then you've got folks that are doing these roles wherever they are, trying to be your champion. And we want to do that, but we need to have all the information. So I think being honest with yourself, what you do, owning that, and being true helps us help you.
That's good. It's funny you say that. My wife and I was watching the show The Chi, and this one sister got fired from her job. She worked at a elementary school maybe or something. And she was like, "But I love my job," but she was late every day.
Late every day.
How do you love your job and you can't even show up on time, right? That's a good thing. I'm sorry, Michelle.
No, that's fine. I will say, I don't know if I should say, sometimes the quiet truth is, as much as we're being champions for you and we're putting our emotional and mental health sometimes on the line, fighting for you behind the scenes, sometimes it's the people we're fighting for that's putting daggers in our back. So as a result of that, that's heartbreaking when you see that, because there are some mentalities that think it's only room for one. There's some mentalities that think, oh, we all should be doing it, like we can't come together, because I love how you're emphasizing there's power in numbers. Oftentimes it's easier for me to get my work done if we can work as a collective and come together, and for me to really understand what's going on throughout the organization versus everyone trying to do our jobs. Because if most people come up to me, they have a light in their eye, they're like, I want to be a diversity leader, and they're trying to do diversity work off the side of their desk. And I want them to be a diversity leader. I want them to go on this path, because this is purpose-driven work for me. But I want you to really understand what this work is, because what you're seeing, the shiny objects and the diamonds and all the glam of the role, is only 5% of the role. The other part of the role is some hard work. The other part of the role is keeping you up at night, and it gives you a lot of sleepless nights, and you really wear the weight of the organization on your shoulders, because you're seeing a lot of things behind the scenes, and you're really working to be strategic and really build processes and procedures that's going to move us forward. But you have to have those conversations with your D&I leaders and say, what is it that I can do to help move this work forward? And make sure you're also communicating with them what you need, because they're trying to work with lean resources to get things moved forward for you, but they can't do it alone.
I feel like you took a lot of the words right out my mouth, which is fantastic. So I'm going to just kind of add a little bit to what Michelle just shared. I think it's important for you to understand that as excited as you might be about some aspect of DEI, whatever equity might look like that you're excited about or passionate about or connected to, the best thing you can do is do it in the job you do every day. Because when you decide you want to work in the diversity space, it reinforces, and I'm not in any way telling people that we do not need people to do this work, because we do. But I need you to do it where you are. So if you're in marketing, I need you to be the DEI person in marketing. If you are in HR, I need you to be the person in HR, in learning and development, in all of the places. Because when there is not a person that understands equity, that understands how to make inclusion a focus in the conversation, that can drive the dialogues necessary in those spaces, it ends up resting on your DEI teams only. And so then you don't end up having the unity that you're talking about, because people don't know. And so if you are in a position where this is something you care about, the best recommendation I could make is to skill up and partner with your DEI teams to figure out what skilling up might look like. A lot of times that's us giving you useful language. A lot of times that's us helping you know how to query in meetings. Sometimes it's us helping you to position yourself better to be able to even promote yourself so that you can have a bigger voice and more opportunity. But I think it's that collaboration piece is so, so critical, but it comes down to not feeling like you have to run right into the thing as much as draw the thing to where you are.
Wow, nice. No, I love that. And please start thinking about some questions, because we will have a Q&A. As I said, I'm going to protect them. So it's going to come to me, and if it works, I'll bounce it over. All right? Okay? But the focus, if you haven't picked up on it, is we, right? We. We should be thinking about we, not them being the organization, we. How can we look at ourselves and do something different and take that step forward versus waiting for them and thinking about why haven't they done this or that for us, right? We need to remove the waiting for someone. We need to remove the complaining about why something has happened or has not happened. We have to own and control our destiny as best as we possibly can.
Can I chime in just with a little
absolutely.
something? I 100%, and to kind of underscore exactly what you're saying, organizations are here to make money.
Facts.
Like that's like, if we just can remember that, like they're here to make money. So when it's shiny and it's bright and it feels like it makes money, they're going to do it. But then when it starts to feel like really nervous, like when, the Supreme Court says that, we're not doing affirmative action anymore, suddenly they are not going to do it because, oh my gosh, is this going to make us money? If we can remember that the organization doesn't owe you much other than your paycheck and some safety in the workplace,
True.
then it's a lot easier to figure out, like, okay, if I want this to be better, how do I make sure that I am thinking about the questions I can ask, the ways I can hold my leaders accountable, the ways I can collaborate with my business partners, the ways I can connect with my DEI teams. And so it is truly a thing that an organization does not, unfortunately, have to care about unless it's shiny. And what I can't appreciate about when it becomes shiny, it usually means that somebody's been harmed. And so I don't want us to have to feel like this isn't important to this business until somebody gets hurt. If it's important to us, then it requires us to take the action to say, okay, well, let's role model the behavior that I expect you to rise to the occasion with.
Wow. It's true. That's true. Piggyback off of that. Are you good? You covered that one?
I'm not going after that.
Dropped that one? Yeah, she dropped that? Okay, all right, let me make sure. I'm gonna switch just one little turn, right? So what advice would you give folks in the audience, diverse employees, that actually has a DEI person that's not diverse? They don't look like them. How do that diverse employee engage with those individuals? Because that's starting to show up more and more a little bit.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
So I haven't seen this yet, but I would imagine you've got to figure out if they give you safe space. Let's just call it what it is. I mean, there was a time when this role was largely dominated by black and brown people, and now it's not. I have met folks who are, I'll say it out loud so that we're not uncomfortable, white, in roles with their allies or doing things, but leading this work, and you got to wonder, well, let me figure out who they are, because they might have a story.
Right.
They may have a reason, and they may have a journey that you don't know about. Right. So I would say first, give them the grace that you might need them to support you so that you know who they are, because you don't want to make an assumption. I'd be a hypocrite if I told you, well, just assume that they are, because that's not what this work is. So first of all, start with the grace, see where they can get things done for you, and then start to analyze, are they doing those things on your behalf? This work looks very different than it did when I started in it years ago. I mean, long time ago. Like, so long ago, like, the discussion around sexual orientation was GLBT. So now, I mean, point is, I guess I would say, make sure you have the conversation with that advocate, that ally, that leader, to figure out where they're going to lead the organization, and hold him or her accountable. Just like you would hold me as a black man accountable for am I doing it or not. Because folks who look like me in these roles aren't always doing their job either. Let's just be straight. Like, I know a few that should be retired like yesterday. So I would just say give them grace, have expectations, and call it out if you don't see it coming.
I would just say do what you did in 2020, because let's be real, there wasn't a lot of people that looked like us in this room at a lot of companies before 2020. And I always tell employees, and I don't say this in a negative way, but I tell people, keep your foot on the gas. And I mean that to say, do what you did in 2020. Hold your leaders accountable. So that D&I leader that doesn't reflect you, make sure you're holding them accountable. Make sure you're going to them, telling them what you need and what your experiences are, and really backing them into a corner so they can tell you how they're going to support you, and make sure that you have a psychological safe culture. And as a result of the open communication, you have to hold them accountable and make sure they're making goals, because what was the saying? If it doesn't get measured, it doesn't get done. Mm-hmm. So if they're just there to say, I'm Mother Teresa and I'm going to make things bright for you, then that's not going to get anything done. It's not going to move the needle forward. But really hold them accountable and make sure they're setting a strategy and really communicating to you what the goals and objectives are to move the culture forward. Mm-hmm.
I agree with what both of you said. I don't have anything to add, but I'm going to just make a couple question recommendations that might be useful for you, because when it comes to holding people accountable, we don't always know how to do that. So if the concern is that there is a safety factor, that perhaps you're not sure if you can be safe with this person, I would recommend asking the question, have you considered how to make this space safe for people who look like me?
Wait, are y'all writing this down?
A leader will answer that. Like, a leader who's really serious about the work will answer you. Here is what I'm thinking about when it comes to making the space safe for people who look like you or who are like you. So that's a great question. You can also do this with your teams. If you happen to be a leader of a team, you can say, what can I do to make this space safe for you? We often walk into spaces and say, this is a safe space. Right, it's safe for you. Okay, so if we really want to know, we can ask, what can I do to make this space safe for you? The second thing that I think you can also do to help hold your leaders accountable is to ask a question that sounds something like, can you help me understand how inclusion comes to life here? So when we're having conversations about values, or we're having conversations about a new marketing plan, or we're having conversations about whatever it might be, can you help me understand how inclusion comes to life here? Can you help me see how equity is being demonstrated in this approach? If you can just take those questions, if leaders are serious, if they mean it, if the company means it, they're gonna answer you. And even if the answer is, we need to do better at that, thank you for raising the question, they will answer you. When you don't get answers, or you get those like non-answers, which I know y'all know what those are, well, then you kind of know, and you get to make some decisions that are gonna work better for you and your career choices.
Wow. Maya Angelou once had a quote that said, when people show you who they are, believe them.
Give them. Yeah. Facts.
That also goes to corporations too.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys got questions yet? Okay. See some hands.
Thank you all for sharing your insight. I'm Amber Lewis, also known as Social in the City, a full-time creative entrepreneur from Detroit, based in Detroit.
Okay.
I know this DEI panel was focused on internal organization, but as external talent, a lot of the work that I do is because of the work that you all do internally. We talked about keeping the foot on the gas, so I wanted to know if there were ways that you felt external could collaborate with DEI leaders internally to ensure that we're considered and represented. We know that women will be reached out to during Women's History Month, and there's an influx of Black folk that will be reached out to during Black History Month and Black artists during Black Music Month. But how can we collaborate to ensure longevity and continuity in those partnerships throughout the entire of the year, not just when it's popular?
Wow.
Great question.
Wow. Yo, she thought about that question.
That's right. I'm like, what? So I will try to answer your question, and I apologize if I don't get all of it. I would say when you're looking to partner with someone inside, a few things. One, have your stuff together.
Yep.
Be thoughtful about the timing of your ask to me or any one of us. Be thorough about how you're going to present that, because we're making decisions with budget, timing, organizational things that no one knows about. And sometimes what happens, especially on our corporate giving side that we have on our team, is people think, well, we don't care. Like, well, you're asking me during Christmas, and I'm a retail store. So like my time window for giving corporate dollars is already gone, or it's going to happen next year. So be mindful of those things, and don't take any of it personal. And I tell this to anybody any day of the week. Don't take it personal if my answer is no. But come back, and I will stay in contact with you the best I can so that I can make the answer be yes, or at least guide you somewhere else so that you can do the thing that you want to do outside, because I've been where you are. I've been on the inside and outside of these companies. And I know the hustle. But at the same time, we have to manage what is happening internally so that we can keep doing what we're doing internally for you externally.
That's good.
I sit in an interesting position because I am outside of a company, because I run my own company that does this work for companies and lots of retailers, actually. So the recommendation that I have and what kind of works for me in my business is when I am in a partnership with a client, and I'm not necessarily a creator in the same way that you are, but I'm still an external vendor, I try to make sure that my value is like 10,000% clear. Like, I want to make sure that that company knows they walked away with something with me like, whoa, we can't get that anywhere else. We need to go back to her. So I do that. The other thing is, to your point about thinking about budgets and timing, because every business has that cycle where it's like, if y'all don't get it in the fall, if it's retail, it's a wrap until next year, like February, March. I think we have to be in the position of setting ourselves up to be ahead of that. Mm-hmm. So if I am reaching out at a time where it's budget, it's because I want you to be thinking about me as you're doing your budget. Mm-hmm. And I can say that, like, hey, I know you're thinking about your budget for next year. Here are some of the new offerings that we have. Here are some of the new approaches that we're taking. So I think it's really being thoughtful about what your value is and putting yourself in the position where like someone doesn't want to tell you no. I don't get calls during Black History Month, even though I'm a Black woman from the city of Detroit. I don't really get a lot of calls for Black History Month, but I'm also usually booked. And so the reason that is because
in February. What
because
you
I'm
talking about?
planning. I'm planning. So like my clients have usually hit me up like November, December, like, hey, so we're already thinking about, and so I don't get a lot of calls for Women's History Month. And when I do, I'm booked. And so I think we also have to do, kind of thinking back to what you were kind of highlighting about accountability is getting really clear about how do I position myself in the long run and set myself up for success. And then when I get those opportunities, knock them to the moon. And as a third and final thing, talk about it constantly. When you talk about things, people feel the need to go back and revisit. When you keep figuring out how to tell the story, what happens is other folks will keep talking about it too. So these organizations will bring you back because people keep hearing about it. And they're like, oh my gosh, that must have been good. People really liked it. And so they will find ways to bring you back. So I don't have the inside answer, but that's the way I work as a consultant.
That was great.
Yes.
That was great.
Just the last quick thing I would add, make sure you're doing your research. Don't come to Puma saying I'm a surfer board company and I want to work with you, because we don't, I'm just saying what I see. I'm in a lot of meetings, and oftentimes it's clear someone has not did their research. And when you're coming in, you should have that elevator pitch ready. You should have done your research, and you should be able to give an example as to why your company is the best choice for Puma and why we should be working with you. And I've sat in quite a few meetings with a certain generation, I'm not going to say the age, where I've on the receiving end, they're saying, well, we don't have a team. We need this money to move forward with the thing we're trying to do with you. Don't tell me that. Fake it till you make it. Act like you have a full staff behind you. I would never know the difference because I don't have time to research.
Right.
So come in fully prepared. Don't tell me all the hard truths of what's going on in the background.
Right.
Fake it till you make it. I would never know.
Yeah. There is benefit in having a hello@cabralco.com. You don't know it's me,
Right.
but it's a benefit when it comes to working with big companies
There you
for
go.
sure.
And you did touch on the research piece. Make sure you understand the organizations you're trying to partner with fiscal year
Yes.
dates. They're not all the same. It's not January for everybody. Each one has different months.
Yes.
And so whoever you're trying to target, understand when do they get new money and start talking to them 90 days or more ahead of that time, because that's when they're starting to strategize and plan it and spend it, actually, because they know they're going to, whatever they don't spend, it's gone. It's gone. All right. Anyone else?
I got you right here. Good afternoon, everyone. Dex Rowe at Nike. First and foremost, thank you for being on the panel, and thank you for your work that you do. Because honestly, I believe it's really thankless work, and it continues to be critical and important for our advancement in the corporate space. I've been blessed to start the HBCU Council at Nike across Nike, Jordan, and Converse, which has been absolutely amazing. And to Dr. Edwards' point, being able to build community and making sure that we have safe space to continue to grow and develop is important. But Michelle, you alluded to it in the space of just crabs in a barrel, or that mentality of being pulled back by people that look like you. Can you all speak to essentially how you push through beyond that point, where you have people, again, that look like you, that are in a space that should be uplifting and supporting the work, but actually look to tear it down or look to make their own way through something else?
That's an easy answer for me, because I don't pay attention to that. You want to be negative, you want to come bring that out of me. My eye is on the prize. What you're doing over here has nothing to do with me. I know what I'm focused on. I know what my end goal is, and I'm the type of person, you tell me a no, I'm going to find a yes. I don't see barriers. So you're going to get that, unfortunately, but you have to focus on the positive, because you can't, those things are going to deter you from getting to your goal. So just focus on those people who have the same shared goal, who's bringing positive energy, and keep moving forward. You can't save us all.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's
good. That's that internal division that plagues us from growth. It plagues us from growth, and we blame it on somebody else.
I've got a question for the panel in general, and not speaking for your own companies, because we don't want you to get in trouble with them. But I wonder, what do you feel is the true commitment of all of these PWI institutions, corporations, universities to DEI initiatives without the shiny new thing? It's like, I feel like, Amber, you mentioned the shiny new thing in 2020. What was the thing in 2020? Really, it was the murder of George Floyd.
Right.
When
Right.
there's a massive movement,
Yes.
that's when we can get people's attention, and DEI across the board started, picking up steam. Now we've got the backlash coming from that, and we've got people who are busy trying to dismantle any DEI initiatives, not just in Florida, but across the board. If laws, if the Supreme Court takes out any sort of, DEI, where do you feel these corporations, not your corporations, but from your vantage point, from what you know
I like
of
that.
these corporations, where do you feel their true commitment is to DEI if it is not a law that requires it or some massive movement that brings attention to it?
I'm going to chime in first just because I think I may be the easiest to speak openly because I don't work for I work for myself. So I don't care. I don't care what your commitment is. I care about what you say and I care about what you do. So the majority of the organizations that I have partnered with have a commitment and obligation, some kind of statement that they have made around inclusion and equity. I am going to hold you accountable to it. Every single time. I don't care if you go home and in your shower you say all the rude, racial, discriminatory things ever. When you are inside the four walls of this organization, my concern is how you are behaving. And I am also concerned about how the organization and the folks who are in it that look like me, and those who don't, who are also allies, are holding you accountable to that behavior as well. You can believe whatever you would like. I care about how you behave. What are you doing to open the doors? Because according to this here organization, we are committed to inclusion, equity, diversity, access, opportunity, blah, blah, blah. And so long as those things stay in place, to your point about keep your foot on the gas, the expectation is that there will still be commitments, there will still be statements, there will still be measured things that organizations are committed to. I am going to make you be accountable for that. I am going to teach the folks in the companies that I partner with how to hold their leaders accountable for that. That's the approach that I take. I try to personally, for my own well-being, but also because it's impossible to just divest myself from the concern of people being bought in completely.
Right.
I cannot survive that way. But I can hold you accountable for the thing that you said that's now in print, that's all over the internet. And so I can also teach those around me to do the same. So that's the approach that I try to take.
Good. And I would also add. Oh, go ahead.
I don't mind answering this question publicly if you don't tell me about it.
Hey, it's recorded.
I
It's live
know.
stream right now.
But in all seriousness, and you've heard some of this before, so for me, I always approach this work as a change management exercise, which is if you start attaching the work around DEI to other things. So when I went into Carhartt, it was on purpose, knowing that there was an element of sustainability, charitable giving, corporate donations, all those other things tied together that would keep the work so tight that you can't say, well, we're liking this work, we love it, but not really, because now it's tied to so many different things. So finding organizations that are doing that or forcing them to have those conversations inside allows your confidence in the organization to be a little more true, more consistent. It is not going to be a perfect thing. That's the truth. Right. And Amber's point about me wondering if everybody's going to like what I do, I know that's not true. Like, I get that already. But when we're having conversation and dialogue, we need to be civil about what we disagree on, and then we move forward. But tying the work to so many different things about the brand and the brand identity, when you tie this work to those things, people aren't going to argue with you about why you're doing the work, because now the brand shows up that way. And that way might be around, environmental issues, around, things that happen in Flint, Michigan versus Birmingham, Michigan. I mean, you have different conversations in different communities because you're not with this filter of inclusion and equity. So I would say making sure it's tied to something that can't be moved by the company or the brand or the institution keeps your work solid, on footing.
Good. All right. I think we have time for what?
I was going to add real quick.
Okay.
One other quick thing is 2 words that I cannot stand is when people come to me talking about D&I fatigue. And one thing I respond to them, a phrase I had to coin, is exclusion exhaustion. People are tired of being excluded and being left out.
Yes.
They are tired of coming to work 8 to 10 hours a day and feeling like they're an outsider and don't belong within their culture. As a result of that, because Gen Z and millennials are now holding leaders more accountable, because they're saying I could go start a YouTube company or whatever, I don't have to work here. Companies are losing dollars because there's a rotating door. And as a result of that, they have to pay attention to what's happening in the culture. Consumers are now holding companies accountable, saying we will not spend our dollars with you if we don't think your values align with my values. So because when you talk about the commitments, companies are finding themselves in a place where they have to pay attention because they're going to find themselves, and I'm talking in general, not my company or just in general terms.
We know
They're
that.
going to, we know that. They're going to find themselves, if they're not still being committed and going through with this work, they're going to find them losing more money on one end, and then they're going to have a rotating door and losing money on the end internally because they can't keep retain talent.
All right. I think we might be able to squeeze 2 more questions in, so make them concise.
There you go over here. Front.
Hi, should I stand? Set that into the mic too. Hi, I have a question. I appreciated the feedback around at some point diversity should be woven into the organization, and that you may not have to have a job title, or that you can do this work without having diversity in your job title. However, I wondered what advice you have for people that look like me and you. They're exhausted by being voluntold to do this work. So if I am in the accounting department, maybe I don't want to be asked what the blacks think today about X, Y, Z. Because I think that a lot of organizations know we care. They know I'm a black woman. They know I have a black son. Of course I'm invested in you getting this right, but I want to do the job you paid me to do, not the extra stuff, because you don't want to pay someone to lead on DEI.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Want me?
So if I heard it correctly, if you're asked to do it just because you look like you can do it, is that generally correct?
Basically.
You say no. I mean, just be honest. I mean, again, it's about you, again, all you being honest with yourselves about, okay, I want to support this work in whatever way I can. This work does require some skill. And not that you or someone else doesn't have it, but if it's not something that you've done, don't take on the burden of doing it, because now everybody's going to look at you like, she couldn't do it? We asked her. She looked like everybody that we were talking. Don't put that on you. Say, you know what, I think we actually should put those resources with hiring somebody who might have done this work before. I would love to support it. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I wrote a book, shameless plug. It's called Say More About That. It's intentionally designed to give people scripts for things like this. Like when you're in a position where a leader asks you to do a thing that you're like, I don't know how to say no to you because you're my leader, but also I don't want to do this or I don't know how. And it's full of actual things you can say, but what you just said is exactly perfect. It should be, I'm not sure I'm the best person to do this work, but I would like to be involved as you're making your selections to find the right person. So it's being like, hey, I'm on the team. I want it to happen, but it's not really for me to do. I need direction as well. Let's pick together so I can get the direction I need, you know? And so it's kind of taking like that approach instead of feeling like just because I look a certain way. And you can also, if you think it's something like that, you can also just ask people like, now what made you ask me to do it? I'm really curious about what you saw. And that will also hold them accountable, right? So now all of a sudden they're having to admit that they are perhaps, leading through their stereotypes and bias, right? So there's a lot of language like that, like, in the book that I wrote, but also that you can just take with you into your day-to-day life or workplace that can help you navigate when circumstances like that come up. Great question. That was a great question.
And so I'm sorry, that was the last question. What was the name of that book again?
It's called Say More About That.
Okay, what was the name of that book?
Say more about that.
Well, that's a movie.
Okay, all right, okay.
They can watch it on Netflix.
You should watch
Oh,
it.
that's true. I watched it.
Watch it.
I watched it. If y'all ain't watched it, y'all need to watch
My
it.
text
Yeah.
got blown up when that hit Netflix.
Oh my goodness. All right.
The Rise and Fall of Abercrombie and Fitch.
It's
That's
a
something to
wild
watch,
movie.
boy.
It's a wild
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, it's a wild one.
Get some popcorn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. for accepting my request. And I protected y'all, right? Y'all good?
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And can
Thanks,
you
Richard.
all applaud Dwayne,
Yes.
this legend? We should stand up and applaud
Yeah, we
Dwayne
should.
for everything.
Thank you.